Brent grunted, 1 foot ahead of the other as he scaled the mountain. He moved among the trees. Sweat rolled down his face. The crumple of leaves drew his attention, and he gripped his axe. He wasn't alone. Unseen by him, something was moving. Many legs stepped in sequence as their owner advanced on its prey. It clicked its mandibles in anticipation of the meal ahead. Welcome to Mythical Phylogeny Adventures. I'm your guide, Jason. Today, we turn our attention towards Ōmukade, a monstrous centipede. Let's see what we can learn of this legendary creature, and how to protect yourself from it. Ōmukade comes from Japanese legend. The story begins in the Shuga Prefecture, by the Seta no Karahashi Bridge. One day, a great serpent appeared and laid along the bridge, scaring everyone from approaching and crossing the bridge, until the warrior Fujiwara no Hidesato came. He was unafraid of the serpent and walked across the bridge, stepping on the serpent and trampling it before it slithered back into the lake. That night, Hidesato was visited by a woman who claimed to be the daughter of the Dragon King of Lake Biwa. It was her who was the serpent that he treaded on. She was sent out seeking aid to stop Ōmukade that lived on Mount Miyakami. It was tormenting and threatening her family. Hidesato agreed to help her and left with his sword and bow. When he found it, it encircled the top of the mountain 7.5 times. He fires arrow after arrow, but none pierced its armor. With his final arrow, he prays to Hachiman, god of warriors, puts the arrowhead in his mouth, and coats it in his saliva. His final shot pierces the giant centipede and slays it. For rewards, he was given a bag of never-ending rice, an endless roll of silk, a pot that can cook without a fire, a large temple bell, and most important of all, information that he needed to stop the rebel, Tiara no Masakado. Ōmukade is a dangerous foe. It has a black body with an orange head and legs. Oh, it has many legs. They also live in caves. It is impervious to all weapons. They are poisonous and often go after dragons and other powerful creatures. But they do have one weakness. Human saliva is damaging to their tough exoskeleton. The first thing we need to figure out is how big is this thing. It is said that it goes around Mount Miyakami 7.5 times. It does have a height of 1,417 feet or 432 meters. But I couldn't find what its circumference is. So not that tall, but judging by the pictures, it looks wide. But it was only wrapped around the top. So not that tall, but judging by the pictures, it looks wide. But it was only wrapped around the top. Doing a rough estimate, it seems to be about 2/3 as wide at the top as it is tall. So 935 feet or 285 meters. But that is a crude estimate, and it varies with the angle. But using that, we get about 1.33 miles or 2.138 kilometers for length. But it could very easily be much smaller. And that is depending on what you consider the top of the mountain. And we have this problem again. Can it breathe? Centipedes are not insects. They are arthropods, like spiders, scorpions, and crabs. The largest breed of millipede in the fossil record is Arthropleura. It lived 326 million years ago and was about 8.5 feet or 2.6 meters in length and weighed 110 pounds or 49.89 kilograms. Now, this lived at a time when the oxygen content in the atmosphere was much higher than it is today. Yes, this is not a centipede, but the close relative of the millipede. For centipedes, the largest is the Peruvian giant yellow leg centipede, or the Amazonian giant centipede, and is only 30 centimeters or 12 inches in length, much smaller than what we have here. If it was killed by a single arrow, we are probably dealing with something much smaller, closer to Arthropleura size. That would also make it more susceptible to arrows. If it is really a mile long, then an arrow isn't going to cause sufficient damage to bring it down. Not without divine aid. No, probably a dozen feet or two is more likely. Even if that is true, we will need to rework its entire respiratory system to keep it alive. Centipedes have their body made into multiple segments with legs on the sides. Also on the side are spiracles. They link together to form a trachea through the body, which allows air to flow through the whole body rather than have lungs. They don't have a heart technically, but an organ called a dorsal vessel, which serves the same function of pumping hemolymph, a substitute for blood. Rather than have blood vessels to carry the hemolymph around, they have an open circulatory system. Now, the spiracles allow for improved airflow into the body, reducing the strain on the rest of the body. This will put less strain on the heart organ, but there will need to be changes. The open circulatory system will not work at a large size. Switching over to a closed circulatory system will allow for improved flow of the hemolymph. But with a closed circulatory system, that will increase the pressure and resistance created with moving the hemolymph along the blood vessels, which we will need to add. We will need to strengthen the heart dorsal vessel, ideally moving from a single chambered organ to a multi-chambered organ to help focus each of its contractions and promote hemolymph flow. Will this be enough? Probably not, particularly with the largest estimate of its size. We also need to look at its tough exoskeleton. It can't be pierced by any weapon, except those with human saliva on it. Why is that? Human in particular. Not dog or reptile? Doesn't seem to make sense. Human saliva is mostly water. Some white blood cells, mucus, loose skin cells, but most importantly, enzymes, particularly lipase and amylase. The first breaks down fats, cholesterol, and others. The second breaks down starches into simple sugars. What about an exoskeleton? It is a chitin made of proteins and carbohydrates. It is the last one I want you to look at. Carbohydrates can include certain kinds of starches and sugars. That means the amylase may be what is breaking down Ōmukade's shell. Now, pinpointing the exact type of material is going to be difficult. We need something durable against physical strikes, but weak to a simple enzyme. Sadly, there isn't a substance that fits our needs. At least not one that I know of. I would need a shell sample to know that. But there is an issue. Ōmukade eats humans, alongside dragons. In doing so, you think that human saliva would end up on its shell and weaken it. At the very least, some would end up on the exoskeleton around the mouth, especially since it too has saliva, and there is little difference between different species' saliva. There is another factor that could have an effect, and that is what Hidesato was eating: travel rations. Okay, and what would that be? Traditional Japanese food? Rice? Red bean buns? Udon? Soba? No, we need a more specific option. Local delicacies from the Shuga prefecture. Red konjac jelly? Funazushi? Ayu sweet fish from Lake Biwa, among others. The Ayu sweet fish seems like the best candidate. It matches the geological location the best. But again, I cannot specify exactly. Most likely, some combination would be the true answer. What do you think? Honestly, I do think that something he ate had an influence on the results. And there is the issue of time. All substances will take time to break through the exoskeleton, to dissolve it. There is a chance that the correct substance was on the first arrow, and only by the last arrow broke through the shell. Or it slipped between the segments and struck the dorsal vessel heart itself. A lucky shot, always invaluable in battle, and never should be discounted. So, how do we battle Ōmukade? Yes, we know that you need human saliva, or the correct substance. Was it even necessary? We know this is a large foe. That means it will struggle with stealth. But centipedes can dig, and that is how it will hide until it reaches its full size. You can look at disturbed patches of dirt. It should be loose soil still, and vegetation torn up. Look for bones and other discarded parts of animals. Once found, you can begin the battle. Coat your weapon in saliva, or the correct substance. Regardless, the place that you will be aiming for is the gaps between the segments of its long body. But with what weapon? You'll want range. Bows and arrows, of course. But up close, spears, polearms, and halberds are going to be the best. You'll need to get around the long legs. When fighting, don't go for the head. If it really is over a mile long, it'll be dangerous with its strong jaws. Go after the middle. The reason I am not suggesting the back end is because many centipedes use a form of mimicry, so that its tail and head look the same. That means it'll be too easy to mix them up. That is why I would attack the middle. If you face the head, be careful of the mandibles. They are venomous when bitten. Due to its size, armor isn't going to help much if it is the largest size. The smaller size, yeah, armor will help, particularly gambeson and plate. Chainmail will run the risk of being pierced. Regardless, if fighting the head, have some antidotes or healing magic ready to go. On the magical front, it depends on how its shell responds. Centipedes normally can hold their breath for a while, but this one shouldn't due to its size. Still, ice magic that can freeze the legs and will limit its mobility. Fire magic can be dangerous with such a large body, and if you can get smoke into the spiracles, it can create plenty of issues for it. Ideally, those should be a prime target to attack. Get a strong poison in there, and it'll get through its body in short order. But Hirasato may have struck a different place with his last arrow. If a single arrow is going to bring down such a massive foe, you need a key spot. The dorsal vessel heart organ. Dorsal means back, and that means our heart organ is on the back of its body, where an arrow will most likely strike. Ōmukade is a foe to be approached carefully. Make the necessary preparations before even starting the fight. Get your weapons coated in saliva. Scout out its location. Find its weak point. An area where it won't be able to get to quickly. Only when everything is ready do you act. And that is why Ōmukade gets a 7 of 10 for difficulty. It does have one weakness, which is easily achieved. I mean, you just need to spit. Even with that, you'll struggle to get within range to fight. This is a creature which fights dragons. When slain, Ōmukade offers a few things. You can eat its insides, but you could fashion its exoskeleton pieces into armor. So long as your opponent doesn't know what it is made of, they will struggle to get through it. But Hirasato did receive some particular rewards. An endless bag of rice. You can feed an army forever with that. No risk of starvation, so long as you don't mind rice. And you get a pot that can cook without a fire. Important on a stealth mission when you can't risk being detected. a roll of silk that you can cut and never run out. You can make layer after layer of it to create a form of armor or sails for a ship, or just sell some of it. The temple bell being the least valuable unless donated to others, but the last one was a piece of information that could turn the tide in a war. For any campaign of war, information is vital and is what determines the winner more than anything else. Ōmukade lunged at the adventurer. Brent didn't have time to respond as he was knocked to the ground. Flat on his back, he looked up at the massive mandibles nearing his throat. Brent swung his axe at the massive centipede, but did nothing. The iron blade just bounced back. The adventurer could smell the poison approaching him. In a pitiful act of defiance, he spat at his foe. It wasn't meant as an attack, just a spur-of-the-moment act. But the moment the liquid touched the exoskeleton, Ōmukade reacted. Its exoskeleton corroded and cracked, an opening. Brent swung his axe again. This time, it crushed the shell, and the centipede toppled over. Brent slipped backwards to safety, breathing heavy. Looking at his fallen foe, he made his way, his nerves biting at him. Ōmukade is a dangerous foe. With only a single weakness, you'll need to plan. Even then, you'll need luck and cunning to bring down this foe. Thank you for watching, adventurers. Please return next week, where we shall meet the Collaborator Men. Until then, I'll see you on the roads.